Hello, in this video we will first cover the important concepts that were not covered in the previous video from module 1. So first we'll cover that and then we will continue with module 2. So now in module 1 we had left a very important question, that is Harvard and von Neumann architecture. So let us see first what is von Neumann architecture. So von Neumann architecture is an architecture where you have the program plus the data memory as one memory only. That means in one memory only you have some portion as your program memory, that is your ROM, and some portion as your data memory, that is your RAM, and CPU, that is your processor or your controller. It will access this memory using one set of bus. So to access the program as well as the data memory, you have only one set of address and data bus. So when you have such an arrangement, we call it as von Neumann architecture. Apart from von Neumann, the other architecture is Harvard architecture. Now in Harvard architecture, the memories, you have two different memory chips. All right, you have a separate program memory and a separate data memory, and more important here is that you have separate address and data bus. Okay, so you have a separate set of address and data bus to access your ROM or the program memory, and you have a separate set of address and data bus to access your data memory. So we call such an architecture as Harvard architecture. So there can be a question like 8051 has which architecture? So mostly it has a Harvard architecture. Next. Alright, for embedded systems, which is more suitable? Since you have already done microprocessor, so this question can be asked that if I want to design an embedded system, you will go for a MUP or a MUC as your core. So the answer is definitely MUC, that is a microcontroller. Reason being that it has inbuilt RAM, ROM, IO ports, okay, which makes it more suitable for a complete task or one application. What do you mean by embedded systems? Embedded systems are characterized by, they perform only one task. They are designed to perform a single application, and the size of such a system has to be small. They should be battery operated. Okay, so all these features you want in an embedded system. So the best option is to use MUC. All right, why? Because it has a small amount of ROM, RAM, IO ports inbuilt. All right, and for MUP, if you take a MUP, you will have to use a separate ROM, RAM, IO port. All right, you will need to include all these things in your system, which will make it more big in size. Also the power consumption will increase, which is not suitable. An example I'll give you of embedded system, which I'm sure you can correlate, is your remote control. All right, when you need to change the channel or increase the volume and all, you have a remote control, and you see it doesn't get hot when you use. All right, why? Because it is battery operated. Also it is performing a dedicated task. All right, whenever you press a button, it will do a task. It is not like your PC or your laptop, which is performing n number of tasks, and hence the power consumption is also less. So you can, when I talk about embedded systems, just remember your remote control as an example. Now, a very important concept that we didn't cover in the previous video was your PSW, the flag register. All right, we call it PSW, program status word. Basically, it gives the status of the program. Like you run some instruction, and then whether the carry is generated or the parity is even or odd, etc., etc. So it will give you the status, and that is indicated by flag. So in 8051, you have these flags. All right, the active flags are this. Out of that, carry, auxiliary carry, then your overflow and parity. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are your, you can say, condition flags. Like if there is some condition, like there is a carry or, some overflow or there is some parity, then this will get set automatically. You don't have to set it. Automatically they are set according to the condition of the instruction that has been executed. Whereas the other, that is RS0 and RS1, these two bits, they are nothing but they are your control bits. You are going to use these two bits to control some operation. We'll see what are they doing. We'll see one flag. Okay. So first is your carry flag, and we also call it as PSW.7. You remember we spoke about bit addressable, where you can actually address one bit or you can modify a single bit. So PSW is bit addressable. That means you can access one single bit of this PSW. For example, if I want to change the content of the flag register, I don't have to write the entire 8 bit in this. You can simply work with a single bit. So when you work with a single bit in some location or in some register, we call it as bit addressable. So carry, you can even address carry as PSW.7. Why 7? Because this is the 7th bit. See, parity is the bit number 0, then this is 1, bit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And which register is this? PSW. So this is PSW.7 and this is carry. So you have 8-bit data, okay? So you have a register. Okay, you have a register. This is bit number 7. This is bit number 6. This is bit number 0. Okay. I'll write all the bits so that I can explain the flags again. 2, 3, okay, so these are the bits, 8-bit when I say. So when is your carry set? Again, we'll just revise quickly. When is your carry set? Your carry is set when there is an overflow from the 7th bit. See, you don't have any space to store the result. Okay. So your carry is set when this happens, when there is an overflow, all right, or a carry generated. That is, for example, you have 1 plus 1. So what is 1 plus 1? 1 plus 1 is in binary. The result is 0, but you have a carry. All right, you will have a carry. So your carry here is 1. So this carry, if you get in the 7th bit, when you get in the 7th bit, then I say that the carry flag will be 1. So in this scenario, your carry flag will be 1. Now, when is your auxiliary carry becoming 1? When there is an overflow from the lower nibble. Nibble is group of 4 bits. So when you have a carry from here to here, all right, from your bit number 3 to bit number 4, then your auxiliary carry is set. This happens when your auxiliary carry is set. Now, why do you think you need to know that there is an overflow from the third, bit number 3 to bit number 4? Actually, we are not bothered, right? We are just interested in the carry. Then why do you think you have this auxiliary carry flag? It has a very important role. If this happens, if your auxiliary carry is 1, that means your result is not in the proper BCD format. Now BCD is binary coded decimal, and this has an important application in digital world, and this is very different from your binary numbers. So if this happens, that means the result is not in the binary coded format. And what you have to do then, you have to actually convert it to proper BCD format. For that, how will you come to know that my result is not in the BCD format? You will check your auxiliary carry. If it is set, that means you have to, perform some operation and convert the result, get the result in the BCD format. All right. So only when you need your result in BCD, right, proper BCD, format, we check the auxiliary carry flag. The next is very simple. You assign any function to this flag and you can use it in your program. All right. I'll come to these 2 bits later. First, we will see the overflow flag. Now, when is your overflow flag being set? Let us see. When you have an overflow from D6 to D7. So see, this is what I mean, overflow, carry and all. So when this thing happens from bit number 6 to bit number 7, all right, suppose you have 1 plus 1 in the 6th bit. So the result is 0 and the 1, this 1 will come in the 7th bit, right? Correct? This will be 0 and this will become 1. So when this happens, your overflow flag will be set. So your overflow flag is now 1. Now again the question is, why am I interested in an overflow or a carry from bit number 6 to bit number 7? Why am I interested? It is very important when you perform operation on signed integers. What do you mean by signed integers? Numbers which have plus and minus, which carry this sign information as well. Now you must have never been bothered to check the overflow flag. All right. Why? Because you assume that the numbers that you are using are unsigned integers. That means the sign is not important. But if you are operating on signed numbers, this 7th bit becomes very important. So the 7th bit, all right, the 7th bit generally decides this 7th bit. This 7th bit decides the sign of the integer. So if the 7th bit, all right, if the 7th bit is 1, if the 7th bit is 1, we say that the result is negative. All right. And if this bit is 0, we say that the result is positive. So what happens if there is an overflow? What happens if your overflow flag is set? See, if overflow flag is set, that means this thing has happened. You have a 1 in the 7th bit. So what will you interpret it? That my result is negative. All right. The magnitude is decided by bit number 0 to bit number 6. And the 7th bit is going to give you the sign of the number, the result. So if 1 is there, you will say that the result is negative. But is that true? No. Why? Because this 1 is because of the carry generated from 6 bit to 7 bit. And hence, if you are performing operation on signed integers, you have to check your overflow flag. All right. Next is reserve. You know, the manufacturers keep some bit reserve so that, you know, they can design some other flag in future. The parity flag. Parity flag is basically set when you have odd number of ones. Okay, and it is cleared. That means it is 0 when the number of ones is even. So you have to remember that it is 1 if you have odd number of ones and it is 0 when you have even number of ones. Now coming to two very important control bits of your PSW, that is RS0 and RS1. Now what are these? We'll see. All right. So RS0 and RS1 are the control bits. They help in selecting the bank of the internal RAM, right? We saw in the previous video the internal RAM structure. So RS0, their name is register select bank. All right, they are register select control bits. So these two bits will decide which bank are you working with. How many banks we had, if you remember? We had 4 banks, right? Bank 0 to bank 3. All right. So if you have 4 banks, I need 2 bits to select any one bank. So if this is 0 and this is 0, so 0 and 0, you are working with your bank 0. All right. So if this is 0, 1, so you are working with bank 1 and so on. So these 2 bits basically help you selecting any one bank from the internal RAM. See, quickly we will revise. This is the bank registers of your internal RAM. Register bank 0, bank 1, bank 2, bank 3. So if I want to change, all right, I want to go to my default bank was register bank 0. This is my default bank. If I want to change it to bank 1, I will have to change the bits of your PSW. All right, bit number, that was bit number, this is PSW.4 and PSW.3. All right, you can either refer them as RS0 and RS1, or else they can even ask you as PSW4 and PSW.3. Okay, So you should know what is PSW.3 and PSW.4. So for bank 0, your RS1 has to, both bit has to be 0 and 0. And the alternate name is PSW.4 and PSW.3. For bank 1, it has to be 0, 1. For bank 2, it has to be 1, 0 because 1, 0 in binary is 2 in decimal. Similarly for 3, 1, 1. Okay, 1, 1 in binary is 3 in decimal. So this is how you select any one bank from your internal RAM. So now after understanding all this, we'll quickly see few questions based on your PSW. Okay, so if your PSW is 3 and your PSW.3 is 0 and PSW.4 is 1. Now here you have to be very careful. We just now saw that first we write PSW.4 and then we write PSW.3. Okay, but here I have written PSW.4 later. First it is PSW.3. So actually I am asking you the question 1 and 0. This is which bank? So definitely this is your bank 2. Understood? Now what you will do if you are in a hurry, you will read it as 0, 1, the way it is written. And then you will say that the option is bank 1. So you have to be very careful. Like what is written first? Is it, this is your RS0 and this is your RS1. And in this pattern that we saw, it was RS1 first and then RS0. So be very careful with your answer. See the next question. So now it is again the same thing. They can, instead of PSW.3, they can ask you RS0 and PSW.4 as RS1. In the instruction, move A, R4. Since in your internal RAM we saw there were 4 register banks and each have registers named as R0 to R7. Correct. So this R4 belongs to which bank? Bank 0, 1, 2 or 3. And what is the condition? When the MUSI is reset. Correct. So when the MUSI is reset, definitely this is your bank 0. Reason being, when you reset the MUSI, your entire PSW is cleared. That means all bits are 0. So if all bits of PSW are 0, definitely RS1 and RS0 are also 0, 0. So 0, 0, that means your default bank is your bank 0. So this R4 is of your bank 0. To change the bank, first you will change the bits of your PSW. Correct? RS1 and RS0, you will change this and then you will switch to other bank. How to change this, we'll see in the next video. Alright, now if A is the result, alright, your accumulator holds the result and the result is 15H, 15H. I won't say 15H, it is 15H. Then what is the status of your parity flag? We just saw parity will be set if you have odd number of ones. Alright, so can you think what will be the parity flag, whether it will be set or cleared? Now 1 is 0, 0, 0, 1, correct? How do you write 1? It is 0, 0, 0 and 1. And how do you write 5 in binary? 0, 1, 0, 1. So how many number of ones you can see here? Number of ones are 3, correct? Which is odd, definitely. So your parity flag has to be 1. Okay, so your parity flag is 1 because the number of ones is odd. Next, need of auxiliary flag. We saw we needed for BCD addition or subtraction. If auxiliary flag is 1, the result is not in BCD format and we use DAA instruction, that is decimal adjust after addition. Okay. Now, which flag is set if there is a carry from D6 to D7? So D6 to D7, we saw which flag will be set? The overflow flag. And we know why it is going to be set and when it is important to monitor your overflow flag. Only when you work with your signed integers. Okay, very important question. Where does your program start to execute when you reset 8051? So when you have just reset your 8051, where will your program start to execute? You saw you have internal ROM, external ROM you can connect. So where is exactly your program going to start? Your program is going to start from internal ROM, and that too from address 000. Why? Who is holding the address? It is the program counter. Very important register, your program counter. Okay. What is the function of program counter? It points towards the next instruction to be executed. So when you just reset, your program counter is 00. That means you will start executing. You means the MUSI will start executing the code from 000 onwards. Okay. Next. Now, when is 8051 successfully reset? When do you say that yes, I have successfully reset the 8051? You have a reset button. Okay, there is a pin on 8051 chip. When you press that, your 8051 will get reset. But the question is like successfully. Okay, you have to be very sure that yes, I have reset the chip. So for that, you have to hold this RST. This is your pin. All right. It has to be high for at least 2 machine cycles. And then see, normally it is low. And when I press this button, it has to be high for at least 2 machine cycles. And then it should return to low. Then I say that I have reset my chip. So, they can ask this question. It can be an MCQ question.